Hi everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. If you've had an encounter of your own and would like to speak with me whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. Tonight's guest is Yamil. Yamil, welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be here.
It's great having you here. Yamil, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
My name is Yamil. I'm a Nicaraguan native here in the U.S. I migrated with my parents. It was in 1991. Been here ever since. Became a citizen through certain laws that were given, and I've been here ever since. I went to middle school all the way up to high school and college. I work as a electromechanical assembler, and I go part-time to school, the ACC, and I have a girlfriend, and that's pretty much it. Oh, and I'm 33 years old.
Yamil, how long has it been since you had your encounter?
Let's see, I'm 33 now. I had my encounter since I was 7, so it's been it's been a long time. But it's fresh in my mind, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. It's a very vivid memory.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Your encounter happened in Nicaragua. Please tell us how your part of Nicaragua was back when you had your encounter.
It's a third world country that was slowly developing. It's part of the central rainforest in Central America, and has a lot of creeks. It's got 2 of the biggest lakes there, and where my encounter happened, it was still developing. It was maybe a couple of subdivisions with some buildings, but on the other side was a creek, and you can still see the tropical forest or jungle still there on the other side. So it was still very wooded at that time.
I see. Before you had your encounter, what were your thoughts on the possible existence of creatures like dogmen?
I thought that was just stuff they told kids just to keep them in line, basically. Or, scare them that there might be bad people out there. But I never thought that these things were actually real. Not in a million years.
Yeah, who would have guessed it? So from what you just said, it sounds like people were telling you stories about, I guess you could call them monsters in the area back then.
Yes, they had a children's book where they will teach you the alphabet, and they will have, like apple will be apple, A. Troll will be T. Fairy will be F for fairy. So they will throw in maybe some mythological creatures, but, in my head, I was just, okay, it's just a nice way of, so you will remember it. It's not that these cryptids were real. I never thought about that. I thought it was just a way of the actor engaging you as a kid.
Who would have thought that something worse than any of them would have been out there and been real?
Yeah, it's a big surprise to me.
Oh, I'm sure it was. You told me in the pre-interview that having a lion look at you was unnerving, but not nearly as unnerving as it was to have that dogman look at you. Why did you say that?
Well, because, especially in our country, if you were to go to the zoo, you can see that the cages are really rotten, and at any point, maybe one of those might get out, and they don't have the same regulations as here. You can actually walk up to them and be 8 feet from them. And it's just a couple of bars protecting you from them, and they're right there in front of you. But yet, you don't get that fear for some reason. My encounter was more like, it was what they call, I guess, primal fear. I felt imminent danger, basically. It's completely different.
I can understand. There's just something about how they look at you that just tears right to your soul, so that makes good sense that you would feel that way. Being as close to the equator as Nicaragua is, darkness falls faster there than it does here. Did that cause you even more anxiety, trying to make sure you didn't get caught away from home after dark after you had your encounter?
Yeah. I think I began to adjust my life. I will run everywhere, and I will run home if I had to do some other errands for my mom. But I will always run home. There was no more walking. I have to make it, before it gets really dark.
I can only imagine what you must have gone through. You said the jungle was across the stream. How far on the other side of the stream was that jungle?
Well, at that time, because it was developing, the whole country you had access to the tropical rainforest, or as I call it, jungle, within maybe 70 yards from you. It was not that far. And the creeks will always go to the Lake Nicaragua. And the Lake Nicaragua has creeks or little rivers that go straight to the sea, to both seas, the Pacific and the Atlantic.
I see. So you're basically right up on the jungle back then.
Exactly. Yeah, because they were just starting to build buildings and houses. Because today is completely different than it was before. It's more populated.
All right, Yamil, please tell us about your encounter. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
All right, well, it was basically when I just turned 7. My birthday had just passed, and my cousin had just had her birthday. She lived with my grandma at that time. My grandma would throw birthday parties, family gatherings at her house. The only thing is her house is a lot closer to Lake Nicaragua and the rainforest than my house. My house was a little closer to the city where my mom lived. And I will go there with my mom. Sometimes I will stay with grandma the weekend, go to school the coming Monday. This time, it was a gathering because of my cousin's birthday. And I basically was told by my mom, hey, listen, I need you to run an errand. Just come back quickly. We're running out of, because this is part of our tradition in our country, to always have cooked beans or tortillas. So she will give me the money, and I knew where the ladies that cooked it on the other subdivision is, and it was about maybe 37 to 40-minute walk. Not too far. I've done this before. I never ran into any problems or encounter anything. And I went a little late. It was around 5:15. When I went, I have 2 containers in my hand, and the road where I'm going has a creek. The creek on one side has rainforest, and the other side you have houses that are, the people live in. As soon as you get away from that and you head towards Lake Nicaragua, you start seeing that there's less houses, there's people. And at that time they were building stuff, so there was nobody living in there. They were building buildings that had no rooftop yet, houses made out of concrete block. But, you had a trail where people use it to walk across, so they can cross the bridge and go to the other subdivision on the other side of the forest. And that's what I did. This time I took my time. I walked, so I wasn't thinking anything of it. Going towards the lady's house. When I showed up, I paid, and they gave me it was about a pound of beans and maybe about 10 tortillas, and put them in the containers. Got the money, put it in my pocket, and started heading home. My grandma's. Well, literally, it gets dark fast, as you said, because it is where the equator is. And I think it was around 6 or so. The only thing is, I know that was the time because my mom gave me a watch and I cherished it, and it was a sports watch. And that's one thing I like, because I like the light. I will always check the time on the light. And I looked at it and I was like, well, oh my God, it's already almost, 6:10, 6:15. And I'm like, well, I guess I, better run back because I'm going to be late. They're going to tell me something. But walking 30 minutes back and forth makes you tired. So I ran halfway. When I got to the bridge, I stopped and said, I'm going to walk it because I'm not that far from home. I'm about maybe, at the most, maybe a mile or a mile and a half. I'm crossing the bridge and I'm heading toward the development area. It was full moon. That was a good thing, I guess, in a way, because they had no lights in the development section. And the full moon, it literally shines everything. You don't really need you don't need light, artificial lights or lampposts to look. I could see the trail perfectly. I could see where I was going. So I'm walking on the trail. The development is on my right side. The creek and the forest is on the left. I'm starting to pass the development of where the buildings are. It was on a hill, and at the top of the hill, once I got to the top of the hill, there was the last building development. I had about 4 to 5 blocks left towards my grandma. But at that particular spot is where my encounter happened. And what happened was, as I'm walking, the trail got close to the door of the building, within maybe 5 feet from it. The doors were, not there yet, but it was an open building. Had no windows, had no doors yet. It was under construction. And it had no roof. So, as I'm heading in there, I'm heading towards the trail, I'm passing the building. Something growled. And at that time, my country was overrun with dogs with rabies or dogs that were just out on the street, like homeless. And I thought, well, maybe because I like animals, maybe if it's a lost dog, I can, maybe feed it a little bit of what I have or, save it. And I guess in a way I was always curious. I was like, is it a rabbit dog? I've never seen one. I heard of them, but I've never seen one. And my curiosity got the best of me. As I'm walking, I walk back 2 feet on the door. And I turn and I see the room. It's empty, it's dark, but the moonlight is hitting it at an angle. I see one corner to my right on the room, it's clean. There's nothing there. And then I look to the left. And that's where I spot something odd. I see like a jet black or darker than dark, big shadow, crouched. As soon as I'm looking at that, immediately my brain was like, well, that's definitely not a dog, but what is that? I stood there, and I started noticing it moving up and coming up. As it came up, I saw the moonlight start showing features of it. The very first one that I saw was this, like, pointy black ears, which I found very strange. And then it kept coming back up, like it kept standing up. And I was like, well, how big is this thing? This thing just kept getting up, higher, or I guess I will say taller. At 7 years old, I'm maybe 4 feet 5 inches. I was not that big. Maybe 4 feet 7 at the most. Looking at this thing, I started to get a weird feeling. I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Finally, it starts to move its, I'm not going to say they're hands. They look like hands, but with claws. They were real big. But not claws that are curved. It was just more longer. And the whole thing was black. Jet black hair. As it goes up, the moonlight starts showing me the facial features of it. I start seeing a snout. And I start seeing what looked like, like what you will see on a wolf, canine. Suddenly I'm like, whoa. A wolf does not do that. A dog doesn't do that. And it hit me. There's only one thing this can be. I'm looking at a monster. And I think the thing that crossed my mind then is like, well, now I'm in trouble. I'm in danger. What do I do? My mind is taking time to process this. It took me about 3 to 5 seconds to process this was a monster. Well, to me, as a kid. I'm thinking this in my head. When I realized that it was a monster, I made one mistake. It had not known that I was there, because it was still facing away from me. But as soon as I realized what it was, I gasped. And that's when, my world came, like, to a halt. because I knew that I shouldn't have gasped, because I know that I gasped loud enough that it hurt me. And it did. It slowly started to growl more, and it slowly started to turn towards me. And I start seeing these eyes that I didn't quite see a pupil, but all I saw was like a yellowish amber, and it was just creepy looking, so as if it was soulless. And the growl, once it hit me, I felt it, vibrating through my whole body. It made me shocked with fear. And I think at that time, my brain was like, you're in the door. If it's gonna come, you need to get out of the way. I couldn't go to the right because that's going back towards more down the development and more wood. And I need to head home. And at this point, the only option I have is turn back to where I was going, which was home. But this time, I think my lucky stars that I did not stay there, shocked with fright, and that I actually decided to run. Like there was no tomorrow. I ran as fast as I could towards home, screaming. And I was crying and screaming at the same time. It was a rough experience because I ran almost 5 blocks nonstop. And my grandma had her door open. They always do because they're always in the living room. And they were just getting ready for their body and they were just waiting on me. I ran into my grandma's house. I ran past my mom, past my grandma, my aunt and uncle, and my cousin. And I ran to the kitchen. Because the thought on my mind was like, this thing is behind me. And the only thing I can think of as a weapon were my grandma's kitchen knives. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but that's the only thing that, in my little head that I thought, hey, this is the only thing I got. And I thought I have to protect my mom and myself and my family. So I sat down the containers on the kitchen, went straight for both steak knives and pretty big, and I held them up and I said, it's coming, I'm ready. My family was in shock. They'd never seen me act like this. And they told my mom, he's still as a ghost, what's wrong with him? My mom took me to my grandma's room to talk to me, what's going on? I told her I saw a monster. And it was not that far away from here, and I thought it was coming after me. She told me, don't worry, you're safe. After that, I used to be very jolly before this encounter. Very outgoing. I will go out with my cousins. I will go out with my, uncle. We will rainforest. We will go catch snakes, stuff like that. But after this happened to me, I couldn't do that anymore. I just couldn't do it. I was more, reserved, more introvert. I would rather, stay at home, read a book or listen to music, something else. But I wouldn't go to the books by myself. No, not knowing that was out there. And the day after this encounter, I went back to my mom, to her home, and I thought I was going to be okay. Well, I'm sitting in my bed trying to go to sleep, and all of a sudden I go into a dream state, and I start having this nightmare about this thing coming at me. And my nightmares will always be it coming at me and open its mouth and trying to literally chop my face off. And I will always wake up in sweat, in fear, screaming. This happened for a period almost a week at first, and then it went down to every other week. And then it slowed down because I tried my best not to dream. I tried my best to tire myself so that I would not have dreams. Because they were all just nightmares about this thing. And it was almost the same scenario, always running towards me. I wanted to try to block it out, and it took me about, at the most, maybe 9 months to do it, but it was tough to deal with on my own. I reached out to my best friend who lived next door. She's a girl my age. And it was disappointing because instead of getting the support that I thought I was going to get from my best friend, all I got was, "You have an overactive imagination." That's what she told me. I couldn't get mad at her because I understand, well, she's never gone through it, but I was expecting more. And now, when I was 11, my mom, my stepdad, met, and he was a citizen from here, and they arranged it so that we could come to the U.S. I came here, I was 11 and a half, and started my life here. I thought in my head that I was away from where the monsters are in our country. Because I heard, and I looked at it in my school in Nicaragua. A lot of it's in their folklore, it's in their history. And I thought, well, I've left my country, I left I'm sure here in the US there are no monsters. But to my unpleasant surprise, slowly I began to hear about Michigan Wolfman or Dogman. And then as I started reading more, I looked at this website, Dogman Encounters, and decided to reach out to Vic, and he's been very helpful. He's helped me look at it in a way that I never did, and I'm grateful for it. And it's a good service he's giving to people like us that had this experience, because nobody seems to understand unless they go through it. But that's where I am now. Is basically what happened.
The first time you told me about your encounter, you had a lot of trouble relating it to me, Yamil. Tonight it wasn't easy for you, but it was easier for you to talk about. I'm glad it's getting easier for you to talk about it. I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, I have to give you a lot of credit. Nobody's ever really listened. Nobody's ever really made me see it in the way that it was. I mean, not overanalyze it, and maybe understand that if that thing really wanted me, there's no way a 7-year-old kid will have run something like that. It's impossible. I never looked at it that way. And I'm grateful that I reached out to you, because it just gives me a different way of looking at it. And it's helped me cope with it better.
It is all about how you look at the situation. I'm glad that at least you're able to deal with this so much more easily now. That's great news. How far did you say you had to run to get home from it?
Well, it was about 4 to 5 blocks, so about a mile almost. And I ran nonstop. My heart was beating like there was no tomorrow. But I used to be in track, and I think that helped. I was fast when I was little. And, it helped me go all the way up to my grandma's house with absolutely no hesitation of stopping for a break. And I felt like I wanted to run like the wind. It was as if I could feel it behind me, but not behind me. And I did not want to look. So I thought if I looked, I'd trip, I'm done. That's how it made me feel at that time. Me being little, I didn't know what else to do except run.
Oh, I'm sure the whole way home you felt like it was just inches behind your neck, so I can only imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah.
If you hadn't run that night, do you have any opinions on what might have happened to you?
You asked me that before, and it's kind of hard because I don't think I will have ever had the chance to relate anything to anybody or be here. That's how much in danger I felt. I felt, oh my God, I'm a goner. The only shot I have is just try to run and not run it. That's how I felt. And I think that if I had not run, from the bottom of my heart, I really think I wouldn't be here. I think it would have probably taken me and done whatever it wanted with me.
Well, it's possible that's what would have happened, but we just don't know. Understand that dogmen do at least occasionally attack people, even in unprovoked situations, so anyone who tries to tell you that, dogmen, they don't attack people, well, that's not true. But, unless you actually had stayed there, we really don't know what would have happened. But what I can tell you is, it was in total control of that situation. If that dogman did have attacking you on its mind, that's what it would have done. Like I told you in the other conversation, if it had it on its mind to kill you, then that's what it would have done. But it didn't do either one of those two things. So, like I told you before, do the best you can to look at it for what it was, look at it for what happened, not what could have happened, and you'll be just fine. When you turned and ran from that dogman, you said you just knew it was behind you. Did you ever hear anything behind you that cued you to the fact that, yeah, it was right behind you, or was it just a feeling that you had?
It was a feeling, and it's as if its presence. When I saw it, it was as if it was mad. It was like letting me know with its look that it was mad that I saw it. And it's as if it was angry that I saw it. And when I was running, I felt the hairs in the back of my neck stand up. So it was just this feeling. I never really wanted to look, to be honest. I didn't want to take that chance. But I felt it. I felt it as if it was literally behind me.
Well, I'm glad you didn't look. Is there anything you did when that encounter was going on you wish you would have done differently?
Probably go home earlier, so I wouldn't have the encounter, but I don't know. Maybe not go back and be curious about what the noise was in the first place.
You can't go back and change any of that, so what happened happened. All we can do now is just deal with it, which I think you're doing a great job of dealing with it, by the way. Are there any other physical features you can tell us about now that dogman had you haven't already shared with us?
The legs were not like a person, or like what people will say, like a Bigfoot. It was more like what you said. They were bent, but he was like, when it was standing up, they looked bent, and like he was standing on his toes, basically. They were big legs. Also, the snout was not as long as like a German Shepherd. It was like a mid snout. It was not too pronounced, but it was there. And the height in our country is the same as here. Everything's about 8 feet tall. This thing was almost reaching the roof.
So it was a pretty large one then.
Yeah.
Well, they do get quite a bit bigger than that, but yeah, roughly 8 feet, that's big enough. Was its head in proportion to its body, or was it disproportionately large?
No, it was in proportion. It had a big head as well as a big it had like a muscular body. So yeah, it was in proportion. It wasn't too big or too small. It was big, but it was big enough with the body. You could tell the body was built for that head. It was a big creature. It was like if you were to see a bodybuilder, he'll have a big head proportionate to his body. Kind of like that multiply by 2 times. Because this thing was big. It was very frightening for me. Very it looked like a very powerful creature.
Oh, I'm sure it was. If it's of any comfort, understand that while your encounter was very frightening and unnerving, there are plenty of encounters that get much worse than what yours was. Imagine talking with an eyewitness who sounds like they're standing on a paint mixer when they're trying to relate the details of their encounter to you. How did the dogman you saw compare to the dogman on dogmanencounters.com?
You're actually kind of close. The only thing that's a little off is maybe that big hump on the back. I didn't see a hump on the back. I just saw a big back. The head was a little bit bigger, but not too big. The ears were a little bit more pointy, like towards the top. But the snout and the eyes, they match perfectly. Especially that amber color that it has. And yeah, it matches somewhat to it. I never saw the big hump on the back. That's the only thing I didn't see. But everything else kind of does match.
I can only imagine what that must have been like to go through. When your mom took you to that room and you told her what you had seen that night, do you think she believed you or did she kind of brush it off?
I think she kind of believed me because when she was growing up, she heard stories. But I guess she looked at it like, oh, well, as a matter of fact, you're alive and you're okay. It was like, well, it happened. It's a matter of fact, and brushed it off as if it was a normal thing. She didn't understand that. I guess she looked at me like maybe I misidentified what I saw, and maybe that I saw some kind of other, like, wilderness animal, which is not true. It was like she didn't quite believe it when I told her. She kind of believed more like, oh, okay, he probably saw something that looked like a wolf and he's scared. But she didn't quite believe me. Mm-mm. It was kind of tough because it is my mom, and when you're a boy and you're telling her, hey, you've gone through something traumatic, and they think that you're not being 100% real with something that sounds unreal. But to me, that's what happened. That's the truth. She didn't understand, though. I guess she's one of those that if you never seen it or you never had an experience, you don't believe anybody else until you go through it.
Yeah, if you haven't experienced something like that, it's understandable why you'd be pretty skeptical about their existence. What can you tell us about the stories your mom shared with you about things like dogmen?
She used to tell me for some reason that they were, I guess, primitive people that will say and have in their walls like the pictographs of wolf-looking things or big ape-looking things, and that maybe it is true that they are out there, and that there are parts in our country, for example, that have names that where it's like a warning, be careful. People tell you they see gnomes, for example, or they see witches or skinwalkers as well. So those kind of stories. But I don't think they have seen anything themselves. It's just stories that people tell from one to the other, from what one of their ancestors have gone through.
I'm glad she shared those stories with you.
Mm-hmm.
Who helped you most when it came to getting over your encounter?
Well, I'm a God believer, so I have to say God, because He was my only shield, and that night it was as if God was the only one that sent my guardian angel to tell me, hey, it's time to run and run fast. And I prayed to God to not have any nightmares anymore, to have it seal on me and keep me protected, and that I will do my part to not go to the woods alone or avoid them as much as I can as possible. But I have to say, for me, it was just praying and I believe in God.
Well, if an experience like that doesn't bring you closer to God, I don't know what will. Like you said a bit ago, 3 years after you had that encounter, you moved to the U.S. Please tell us about the effect that had on your life and your recovery.
Well, before I went to middle school, I was like, wow, I felt that I was relieved. I thought, there are no monsters here. People here are more civilized. Everything's different. Here in America, the living is so different. Everything is different, and it helps. It helped me get through it. It helped me have a more of a normal childhood. That's what I liked. So it did help tremendously. In high school is when I started finding out, reading through libraries, and seeing the TV shows like in the History Channel about Michigan Dogman and stuff like that. And that's when I found out, oh my God, I was so wrong. Not only did I not get away, they're actually here as well. So that was another eye opener that it wasn't pleasant, but I count my lucky stars that we always lived in the city. So I figure, just like over there, I just stick close to the city and I should be fine. That's how I've been going about it.
Yeah, that had to be so frustrating. You move here and think you're making a clean break, and next thing you know, you find out that, yeah, they're here too. That's got to be so frustrating.
Yeah, it is. You left the land where people who are still practicing dark magic, and who knows what other stuff is out there, and there's a jungle there that nobody's ever set foot there in eons. I expect something like that out there, but I never thought something like that was here. So yeah, it was a big surprise for me.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Did you notice any strange smells or hear the Dogman make any sounds besides the growling when you had that encounter?
No, there was no wind. The only thing I felt is the growl. The growl was deep. It was like guttural deep. And it hit my body, it hit my chest. In less than a second, I was frightened. As soon as he did that growl and he was turning towards me, looked at me with that eye, its looks were just enough to scare me. So the growl was powerful. I heard of a lion growl. This growl was way louder than that.
Well, the fact that you saw that, the fact that you heard that, went through that experience and came out the other end, still functioning and doing fine the way you are, that says a lot about your constitution.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you know of any other people who have had Dogman encounters in that area?
When I researched it, it was one of my uncles. He had told me he had seen something that looked like a wolf, but he said that it looked bigger than a wolf, and he said he had never seen anything like that before because wolves are not known to be in our country. It's a tropical rainforest. You don't find wolves there. And that's what I found out. And I told him, well, maybe he saw one of these things just instead of standing up, it was on all fours, maybe. But yeah, he was the only one that I believe he saw something. He's just, in his time, he did not know exactly what it was because I don't think it was well known yet.
Yeah, it does sound like you might have seen one. We'll never know for sure, but it sounds like it's a strong possibility.
Yeah.
Do you see it as a curse or beneficial that you had that encounter?
I think it was more of a beneficial because it's as if God told me, hey, you're careless when you go out there. Don't think you're supreme. It was like God saying, there are monsters out there. And you need to be careful. So I take it as a good thing that it happened because it made me more knowledgeable of what's really out there. Rather than me like I used to be, not knowing anything, walking through like not knowing. It was like walking on eggshells. You never know if you're going to have an encounter that will be my last. But this time I knew. I knew what was out there. And I looked at it like, well, if that's possible, anything is possible. It opened my mind a lot, so I find it very beneficial.
Well, I like the optimistic way you look at that. Like you said, at least now you know they're out there and you can take the appropriate precautions to hopefully prevent another experience. So that's a good thing. If you have kids someday, are you against the idea of telling them that monsters aren't real?
No, I'll make sure they know. I'll make sure that I do my part to let them know. Science has not proven it yet, but the fact is I went through it. And I want to let them know that these things are out there so that they're safe. So they take the precautions.
Well, I can respect that. It's one thing to tell your kids that when you don't know better, but when you know that they are really out there, I can't see why you'd want to say that.
Yeah.
What shook you up most about your encounter? Was it the way the Dogman looked or acted towards you?
It was more the way it looked. I mean, you see something like that in movies, but when you see it in real life, it's a totally different experience. It's not a show anymore, and you look at it and you're like, oh my god. It's like it's in your face. He looked menacingly, he looked formidable and scary. His looks were, to me, were never very scary. I've never seen anything like that. Never. It scared my whole foundation. It was unnerving. And it was his looks mainly. He looks more menacing to me. Because once I started running, I didn't know if he actually turned to run towards me. But his looks were enough to just shake me completely.
Oh, I'm sure they were. As if that experience wasn't enough, last month you and your girlfriend had a Sasquatch encounter. How did that encounter compare to your Dogman encounter?
Well, if you're doing a 1 to 10 scale of danger, a Dogman encounter to me was a 10. But a Sasquatch encounter was more of a 3 or a 4. That's how I would look at it. That's how I would rate it.
I'm not surprised you feel that way. There have been plenty of people who have had Sasquatch encounters and actually seek them out who have told me, you know what, I'll take a Sasquatch encounter any day over a Dogman encounter. I don't want a thing to do with those guys. I can understand you feeling that way. And speaking of that Sasquatch encounter, of course, I've asked you about being a guest on Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio. You accepted, so I'm looking forward to having you come on that show and talking with you about that experience.
I'd be happy to do that too. It was a good thing because my girlfriend was there. I had told her about my encounter as well, my Dogman encounter. But again, I was met with, he's just telling me something just maybe to scare me. That's how she looked at it. She did not believe that the cryptids were real when we had that encounter. Wow. I was grateful to have it with her because I got recognition on her and validation that, hey, I'm not crazy. I was telling you the truth, but these things are out there. And it made me feel better. And she apologized because she's like, well, I didn't believe you, she said. But now, having experienced it, she knows. She knows they're out there as well.
Well, I don't like the idea of you two having to have that Sasquatch encounter, but at least by having that encounter, like you said, she knows that cryptids are real, they're really out there, and because she knows now, at least she should be there to help support you and help you get over this Dogman encounter, so I guess it is a net positive.
Yeah. It was positive because for the longest, it's hard to find people that can relate to you. Because when you have the experience, you have it on your own. But if somebody's there with you, you get to share that load of that whole thing, and they get to understand you, and they get to vent on you, and they get to understand that you were not being dishonest, you were being honest, and you were being open about what happened to you. So I was happy when we had it together because it made her realize, hey, you know what, these things are real. And he was not lying to me. I was very happy with that we had it. And I was more happy to have a Sasquatch encounter with her than a Dogman encounter with her. So I don't know how that will turn out. But I know that after mine, oh my God, I will not want to risk it with her. So I think I count my lucky stars that I had a Sasquatch encounter so that she knew that these things were real, rather than a Dogman encounter, which is a whole different ballgame. It's in a very dangerous level.
Well, it comes as no surprise you feel that way because, let's face the facts, if you have to have an encounter, it's definitely better to have one with a Sasquatch on almost every occasion than it would be to have a Dogman encounter.
Yeah.
Having had your own Dogman encounter, what's your opinion on the fact that some people actually head out into the woods trying to have an encounter with one of these things?
I think with all due respect to them, they don't respect the power of the creature, and they don't respect the fact that if it's like a Dogman or wolf, they're territorial creatures, and they're gonna defend their territory, and it can lead to them really hurting you. I think people like that need to step back and maybe rethink going out there and trying to have one. It may not be a good idea at all. I don't recommend it. I think it's a horrible idea. I think you're putting yourself in danger on purpose. So when I had it, it was like nearly accidental. I was not looking forward to having one. But if you go out there and you look for something that can hurt you, you're asking for a lot of trouble. So I definitely don't recommend it. I think it's a bad idea.
I have to admit, I'm not all that keen on the idea myself. While I do know quite a few people who do go out and beat the bushes looking for Dogmen, and I'm convinced they have thought things through and they understand the ramifications of what they're doing, at the same time, I know of quite a few people who, in my opinion, haven't thought things through, and they really don't have a clue what they're getting themselves into, and that's not good. Well, Yamil, it's about time for us to get out of here, but before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Well, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to let your subscribers and everyone listening to us know that these things are not only are they dangerous, they're not just here in the U.S., but they're in different parts of the world. And I'm happy that you gave me a chance so that people know, be on the lookout for these things. I'm not saying they're going to hurt you, but the possibility is there. They are real. And they're to be respected. And thank you for making me see things in a different light and helping me cope with my encounter for all these years. You have a fresh look on it, and you're very kind to me. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yamil, thanks again so much for coming on the show. I really do appreciate your time. Have a great night.
Thank you, Vic. Bye.
Bye.